Once again, welcome back to the program. ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਦਰਸ਼ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਨਾਲ, ਇੱਕ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਮੈਨੇਜਮੈਂਟ ਕੰਸਲਟੈਂਟ ਹਨ। ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੀਜਰਸ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਇੰਪੋਰਟੈਂਸ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਲਿਸੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਸੀਜਰ ਇਵੋਲਵ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ, ਪਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਉਂ ਜ਼ਰੂਰਤ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਡਾਕੂਮੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ ਤੇ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਤੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਰੀਵੈਲੂਏਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ EMPLOYEES ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾਏ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਕੀ ਮਹੱਤਤਾ ਹੈ। ਆਓ ਇਸੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਦਰਸ਼ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਨਾਲ। Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's talk today about the policy procedures. In one of the episodes, you had talked about the importance of that.
Yes.
But why is there a need to reevaluate it again and again, and especially that the employees should be made aware? What is the importance of that?
Well, it's important on a couple of levels. First of all, you want to make sure that you are aware of your policies and procedures. And that means that you need to document them and you need to provide them in written form to your employees and confirm that they understand them.
Right.
To revisit it, the reason I wanted to revisit that whole thing is because you need to update your policies and procedures. And what happens with a lot of business owners is that they get very busy. You know, you start your business, you hire your employees, you think you've done all those things. But what happens in business? Sometimes employees leave, new employees come. Things change. Maybe the direction of your business has changed a bit and your policies are not applicable anymore. So you need to revisit them and keep them updated and make sure that when you get a new employee, that they also understand the same policies and procedures. So those things are important.
And as you said, you know, yes, you are so much engulfed in their new business that these things go to the background, and especially you might think that you have told your employees, but many of the employees might not be knowing about it. So what's the best way to continue with this, that you keep on remembering also that this needs to be done? And when you talk about the re-evaluation of your policy procedures, so can there be a major change, a shift from the basic policies what you have framed with the passing of time?
I think it can, if depending on the type of business you're in. If you're in a particular trade, if you're in building, or if you're in something where a lot of the rules and regulations do change, you need to make sure that your policies and procedures are updated. For example, with WCB, I mean, a lot of their rules and regulations are very standard and they stay the same. They've built a very solid foundation. But you need to stay updated. If you have to be in compliance with other authorities, you need to make sure that that becomes part of your policy and procedures. That's a really good indicator to, you know, every year things change, rules change, regulations change. So you should revisit and say, oh, I'm updated as well. But I think making your policies and procedures a part of perhaps your employee contract, saying, okay, when I hire a new employee, a lot of people don't even have employee contracts. So that's, you know, a whole nother issue to visit. But when you do the employee contract, that's a really good time to hand that to your employees, because you know, you have an obligation to make sure that they know what they're getting into too. And if they understand what you expect of them, they're walking into it with open eyes. And that actually takes out a lot of confusion. It takes out a lot of unnecessary discussion, because you've spelt it out for them.
Absolutely.
And that provides them with the opportunity to review everything. And then say to them, maybe say to you, I don't understand this, or could you explain this to me? Or that's a really good way to start. You're setting a good foundation, you're setting a good example, and you're also letting them know that you understand your policy and procedure too.
Well, as far as the South Asian community is concerned, many a times these things are not taken into account, and later on you repent why you did not look into this. So with your experience, if you could let us know, many a times it's just on the base of, you know somebody, you by way of word, you commit to something and you do not write it down. So with your experience, what have you found out, and why would you forcefully say that yes, this is a must and you should always follow this?
Because it doesn't matter what great friends you are, what a wonderful relationship you have, or even if you know somebody, you say, oh, they vouched for them, they said they're good. That's all great. You know, sometimes those things are a good starting point. But you must document things. You know, business isn't the same as it used to be. There's so many fine-tuned aspects to business. And you know, things happen in business. Things happen. They change. The agreement may change. What you thought you agreed to may not be what they thought they agreed to. But when you spell it out on paper, you both take the time to review it and understand. It also gives you a chance to revisit. If there's a confusion, you say, let's just go back to that and take a look at what we agreed with. And I think a lot of people get intimidated with contracts. They get intimidated with saying, oh, if we, I'll lose the deal. I won't get this job done if we put it on paper. If that's a concern of yours, then maybe that's a good sign that you shouldn't move forward with it. If you're worried that actually documenting it formally and properly is going to lose the deal, it might not be a good deal to do. That's just
Right.
my thinking. But doing that, there's a lot of easy ways. They don't need to be big, long contracts. They
Right.
don't need to be super legal and litigious and have all these clauses to them. But they can just define what your agreement is. And I think it's
Right.
critical. Nowadays, in today's world, with the way, the laws are and the regulations are, write it down on paper. Then you know what? You've eliminated future headaches.
Right, but that's many times people felt offended also if you say them you have to write it down. If you know someone, like
Yeah.
I know you and I have some work with you, and if you ask me that let's write it down, probably one may feel offended about it.
Yeah.
So at that time, as you said, it's better rather than repenting later on.
Yes.
At that time, be forth and try to solve it out.
Yeah, be forthcoming, and it's all in the approach. And I think if you're saying, you say to the person, we're friends, we have a relationship, we've known each other for a long time. I want to keep that good relationship. I want to keep that openness with
Right.
each other. But we're moving into a different type of relationship. This is not a friendship. This is
Right.
not family. This is business. And you're actually doing your partner a favor. You're doing yourself a favor by documenting it, because you're setting very clear lines.
Right.
You're setting those boundaries, and I believe that structure brings a lot of peace of mind.
Right.
You have to have boundaries when you work in business. You have to know, when things escalate, what you're responsible for, what the other person's responsible for. So I believe it's in the approach. My approach is always, I'm doing this for the good of our relationship.
Right.
I would never expect you to think that documenting, our agreement on paper would be offensive.
Right.
Please, and if it is, you know what? Talk about it. It's changing the mindset.
Right.
You have to do business in a modern way. Unfortunately, it's not just on a handshake anymore.
Absolutely. And towards the end, also, many a times we hear that small businesses say that what's the need for a policy procedure? We don't have so many employees.
Yeah.
So, do you recommend even for a business owner who has 1 or 2 employees, should they also jump into this and get this thing done?
Oh, 110%. Even if your policies and procedures you have 5 policies,
Okay. Right.
and no matter what kind of business you have procedure.
Right.
Document your procedure. If your
Right.
employee gets sick and you need to call in a temp, if you get sick and you need your employee to fill in your
Right.
shoes, if they don't understand what the procedures are to your day-to-day operations,
Right.
you're just, you're making a bigger headache for yourself. Document your procedures.
Right.
So you can say, okay, you know what? I know they may not be able to do it exactly. They don't have the experience.
But at least, there's something written which later on doesn't become a problem for them.
Absolutely. And when it comes to policy, you have to have policies. There have to be do's and don'ts. There have to be, for example, if there's a problem, you need to give your employees a direction. Say, okay, if a customer comes to me and they have an issue,
Right.
our policy is, if you can deal with it, this is their instructions. If you don't know what to do, your instruction is to come to me.
Right.
Go to your manager. Give them guidelines. Because sometimes also, employees, especially if they're new, they panic.
yeah.
They don't know what to do.
Right.
Help them out.
So there's no excuse, and also you also don't suffer. It should be absolutely documented.
That's right.
Thank you very much for this information.
Thank you.